Welcome back to the Pro Football Weekly TV podcast. So excited you are with us for week 7. Hard to believe week 7 already. I'm still not sure we've figured out anything, but fortunately I've got a couple experts to help us try and figure it out. Wayne Larrabee and Hub Arkish, thrilled to have you guys back on the show as always. And let's jump right into it, guys. It's been a wacky NFL season. Wayne, I'll come to you first. What stands out to you from week 6?
Well, the Indianapolis Colts have the number 1 seed in the AFC if the playoffs began today, which thank God they don't. But they have the number 1 seed at 5-1. I'm watching them struggle against the Arizona Cardinals at home. It was a heck of a football game. The thing I know, there are 2 MVP candidates, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield, who's leading the number 1 seed in the NFC, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Jonathan Taylor, who is fueling the ground game for the Indianapolis Colts. He makes them formidable. So I don't know, if we've learned a whole lot more than we knew a week ago, but those 2 teams seem to be surviving atop everybody, at least this far. I don't believe they'll be there at the end, but they are now.
You know, Wayne, to be honest, I think we may know less than we knew a week ago. I mean, the Bills and the Eagles both getting knocked off. I'm not worried about the Lions. Kansas City was desperate. We'll talk about that some more, going forward. But the upsets this week, and then, you mentioned the Colts. I am not yet convinced the Colts are a playoff team, let alone a contender. I think they are. They're a good football team, but we're going to talk a little bit about the schedule they've played so far. And so, again, I hate to say the same thing again this week. It's just too early. It's usually at this point in the season, going into week 7, we have a pretty good feel for what the top and the bottom is. I think we know pretty clearly what the bottom is right now, but I have no idea about the top. I need to learn a lot more about these teams, And then, the first head coach firing already, I don't know if he deserved it or not, but I think there's a few more coming when I look at the bottom of the roster. I look at these other teams that are struggling, and I think those are going to be big stories for the next few weeks as we watch some of these coaches. And there's some big name coaches that I don't think they're going to get fired, but people are going to be talking about John Harbaugh. People are going to be talking about the Bengals. I mean, how can these teams be the Bengals? It's more injuries than anything else. But and of course the Ravens have had them too. But not enough to be 1-5. I don't understand what's going on there. Baltimore is a team I just can't get my arms around right now, guys.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Brian Callahan and the Titans, guys, but since you didn't mention it, Hub, I guess I will. In Chicago, we should just be talking about the Bears rattling off 3 in a row in a pretty good spot with, it looks like, 4 straight winnable games coming up. And all I'm hearing about is Caleb Williams versus Troy Aikman. So not sure exactly what's going on there. Yes, I think Aikman was a little critical on that broadcast, but Caleb Williams was asked about it on Wednesday as we record and said that he missed a pre-production meeting with Aikman, was stuck late at Hallis Hall that evening, and by the time he tried to call Aikman, wasn't able to reach him. So, and before Caleb brought it up, it was Ben Johnson on his first presser the day after the game who mentioned what did he say? His kids were watching the next morning, the second half, and they had noted, or he had noted some combination, some of the criticism that was getting levied toward Caleb from Troy Aikman. So I wish we could just talk about the football, but it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Well, and I'll just tell you real quickly, guys, if you haven't seen film of that interview with Johnson, you ought to take a look at it because he was clearly pissed. I mean, he didn't come out and say it. He didn't say anything against Troy Aikman, but he clearly was unhappy about it. And I noticed during the game, I did think Aikman was being less than accurate. I don't want to say unfair. I just didn't think he was reporting that game, accurately for both quarterbacks. But I'm a big Troy Aikman fan, so I don't have anything negative to say. Everybody has a bad game. I think Aikman did have one this week.
It's interesting stuff. I don't think the story's going away. If the Bears and Caleb keep winning, maybe that's how it would go away. We'll be keeping tabs on that story for sure. Guys, we're going to launch right into what looks like an interesting week 7. We're still waiting for some of these teams to separate themselves. Probably figure out some of these 4 games we've highlighted. Wayne, I'm going to come to you first. I got the LA Rams visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars at the top of our list. What jumps out at you on the surface of this one?
First off, it's over in London, which is a home away from home for the Jaguars. They played more games in Europe than any team in the NFL. Former number 1 overall picks in this game, Matthew Stafford, of course, and Trevor Lawrence. Stafford's going to be playing without his lead receiver, Puka Nacua. He struggles a little bit without Nacua. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence, but he's been willing his team to victory on occasion. These are 2 good defenses, Hub. This will be an interesting game. I don't think it's going to be high scoring.
I'm really impressed by this Rams team, guys. I mean, they've got wins over the Texans, the Colts, the Ravens, young talent on that defense. You look at Nate Landman last week had 17 tackles at linebacker. You got Jared Verse, you got Byron Young, you got Quentin Lake. It's an impressive team. And I haven't talked about the offense yet. Matt Stafford is having a great year. You got Kyron Williams and Blake Corn running the ball. Losing Puka Nacua is significant because he is having an all-pro season. But I think they've got more than enough talent to make up for it. And then I turn around, I look at the Jaguars, guys. I questioned it last week how they got to 4-1. Well, we know the turnovers. They got no turnovers last week, and they got their second loss by not getting any takeaways. The other question I have about the Jaguars, I think Travis Hunter is a great player and a great athlete, but I don't think he should be playing two ways right now because he's not really helping them out on either side of the ball. And you've got Trevor Lawrence needs more help on offense. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they rethink that in the next couple of weeks and maybe put him at least focusing more on one side of the ball and spending less time on the other side. We know it's almost unheard of to play both ways in the NFL. It's incredibly hard, and it's not helping him at all in his rookie year for the talent that he has and the player he can become.
Guys, no shame in the loss for Jacksonville to Seattle, of course, especially coming off that monumental win versus Kansas City. But this is a big spot for them because, as you guys both alluded to, defense not playing quite as well last week, not forcing turnovers. And if that's not going to be the case, as you mentioned, Hub, Hunter probably going to have to step up. Lawrence probably going to have to take another step there with Liam Cohn. So this would be a fun one to watch. Two teams that seem to be on the up and up. Hub, I'll come to you next. We've got familiar foes here in the NFC with the Philadelphia Eagles visiting the Minnesota Vikings. It sounds like J.J. McCarthy may be ready to return, did concede his ankle, still not 100%. It was Carson Wentz who practiced in full Wednesday. And then as far as the Eagles go, we could probably spend the entire podcast just talking about the defending Super Bowl champs and what's going on there.
Well, yeah, I wasn't shocked by the upset last week, even though they were winning. They weren't playing great football. They are playing very well on defense, but that offense is ranked, bottom of the league in almost every category. And what's really surprising about that is that it's the quarterback who's carrying them. He's the guy who's keeping them in things and winning games for him. You've got Saquon Barkley has got half what he had last year. I think some of that's because the offensive line isn't playing really well. They are the number one defense in the league after 6 weeks. So they're still Super Bowl champs. They're still very good defense. They're still a very good team. You've got A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert are doing some things for the offense. But other than that, they just don't have enough weapons for Jalen Hurts right now. Or this season finding them. And they're not playing Eagles football. I turn around and look at the Minnesota Vikings, and I see a team, that didn't expect to be without J.J. McCarthy for a couple of weeks after committing to him this year and moving on from Sam Darnold. Kevin O'Connell, he hasn't said yet whether McCarthy will start this week, so it's hard to know how much chance to give the Vikings here. Now, it's not like they're lost if McCarthy isn't playing quarterback. In fact, Carson Wentz has played fairly well, but McCarthy gives them a lot more threats to make big plays. And I think they need to get him back on the field if they're going to contend with teams like the Eagles.
Hub, I'd like to piggyback on what you were talking about, the Eagles' offense. I don't know if they've really found their identity this year. We knew what it was last year. It was hand the ball to Saquon Barkley, and he would run for 125 yards on average per game. This year, he's getting 54 yards per game. Plus, he's had only, 12 carries in each of the last 2 games. So he's not even getting reps, to say the least. So there's some things to be figured out on the offensive side at Philadelphia. I think there are a couple of matchups I'm looking forward to in this game. Jalen Hurts against the Brian Flores defense. That's going to be a great matchup. And then also Quinyon Mitchell, the fine young cornerback, probably going to tag Justin Jefferson and travel with him all over the field. That would be worth the price of admission as well.
It sounds like Quinyon Mitchell avoided a serious injury. He was on the practice field Wednesday. Minnesota has reinforcements on the way for that defense, and Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman. It seems like the bye after that European 2-game stand came at the right time. They should be healthier coming out of it for what should be a slugfest in this one, guys. We move to the AFC now, and we talked a little bit about the Indianapolis Colts already. They will visit the LA Chargers. Wayne, I'm going to come back to you. Thoughts on Justin Herbert, what he was able to pull off late with Ladd McConkey last week, and how this game sets up?
Yeah, Justin Herbert's kind of a wild card in this one. He's been up and down, Arthur. I mean, he had a 127.8 passer rating in weeks 1 and 2. Then it dipped to 72.2 in weeks 3 through 5. rebounded last week with a 112.5 passer rating, 2 touchdown passes, led the Chargers from behind, as you pointed out. It was Herbert's 18th career game-winning drive. Now, the Colts. I get the feeling Hub is like me. We don't quite believe in the Colts, but they are leading the AFC 5-1. They do have the best plus 78 differential in scoring in the league. So they're 78 points. They've scored 78 more points than their opponents have scored in games against them. I just think this is an interesting ball game. It's in Los Angeles, and I think if Jim Harbaugh and company are the real deal, they win this game over the Colts.
Guys, I don't want to knock a 5-1 football team. That would be stupid. But I will tell you what, they've got a 1-point win at home over the Broncos. Pretty good football team. But then there are other Miami, Tennessee, Arizona. That adds up to 6-18. They're not playing anybody yet. When they get into the real roster, I think they may have some problems. Now that said, very impressed by Daniel Jones. This is the year for late 20s quarterbacks to reemerge after failing early in their careers. And then I look at their ranking. They're first in the league in offense. They're really playing well. And Jonathan Taylor, he's a stud. He has been for a long time. And DeForest Buckner on the defense. But beyond that, you look at that roster and you ask yourself, who are the guys making these plays? I turn around, I look at the Chargers, and I know how they do what they do. I know how they were a playoff team last year. I think they've got one of the better head coaches in the NFL, and Jim Harbaugh is going to find a way to turn things around. I was surprised, just 1 and 2 the last 3 weeks. They have been off a little bit, and that troubles me. They've had some injuries. Everybody has injuries, and they've got to worry right now about Marion Hampton. How serious was that injury last week? What's his status going to be? Because they do need him. But there's no question to me in this one, the Chargers are not only the better team, but they're at home. And so I'm with you. I don't see how the Colts get their second win this week. But I'll tell you what, the flip side of that, if they do, then I'm going to stop doubting them because this is the test for them. This is the game that they got to show that they are a 5-1 football team.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily miss Omarion Hampton the first time out with Kamani Vidal's really impressive game for them. Hassan Haskins, former Michigan guy, also did his part certainly in that one. But we'll see how that continues as we go along here. And then, of course, we can't really discount the absences of Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater and just injuries piling up on that offensive line. So if Harbaugh and Herbert can kind of keep on trucking along here, really, really impressive stuff. Guys, we close out our kind of marquee quartet here with the game of the week. I think we can probably all agree on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into Detroit for, if not the 2 best teams in the NFL right now, Wayne, certainly the 2 best teams in the conference.
Yeah, no question, in my opinion. Matchup of number 1 overall picks again at quarterbacks Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. Both are playing exceptionally well right now. One of the things that is interesting to me is Mayfield, despite the personnel losses that he has had on his side, Bucky Irving, the running back, the top 3 wide receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka, none of them are going to play this weekend, but that hasn't stopped Mayfield. He's 5th in passer rating despite those personnel losses. Goff leads the league in passer rating, having another outstanding year. But the Lions' 4 wins have come against teams that are 7-16 right now. Goff does lead the NFL in passer rating, 137.1 in completion percentage, 77.1 against the blitz. And why is that significant? Because Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers, they love to blitz at about 35% of the time.
Well, Wayne, you touched on it a couple times, I think already. Baker Mayfield. If the MVP voting was today, he's unanimous. I mean, he's just having an unbelievable year. 12 touchdowns, 2 picks. And he doesn't have really any weapons, and his best weapons are injured. Now you look at the defense. You still got Levante David. You got Antoine Winfield. You got a few big names out there, but they're not playing particularly great football. The young linebacker Yaya Diaby, he is interesting, and he's going to be, I think, a Pro Bowler for a number of years to come with the way he's playing right now. And the other thing about them in this matchup, they are 6th on defense against the run. How do you have to play against the Detroit Lions? You got to defend the run. If you can defend the run, you can compete with them. Now, I don't know, just the fact that they're 6th in defensive rankings against the run means that the Bucs can handle the Lions running game, because the Lions have the best running game in the NFL. But that will be the key to this football game. The Lions are really playing very well. I don't make much of last week. The Chiefs were desperate. The Lions were on a 4-game win streak. They were 4-1. I just don't think they were ready to play with a team equal to them, which the Chiefs are, and they got beat on the road. I do think that, again, there's a clear choice here about which is the better team. I just, with what I've seen so far, I think the Lions are the better team. And with those injuries on offense for the Bucs, I just don't see, even though he has done it in the past few weeks, how Mayfield is going to have enough to attack that Detroit defense.
I can't wait to see it, guys. Should be an exciting one in prime time this weekend. We are going to pause on our look aheads to take a look back on the 40th anniversary of the 1985 Chicago Bears at their Week 7 game up in Green Bay. Bears 23, Packers 7. Enjoy this archival footage.
Welcome back as we continue our salute to the 1985 Super Bowl season with our series of flashbacks. Remember, in the 7th week of that season, the Bears thrilled the nation with their P formation. William Perry, yes, William Perry took his ball-carrying skills out of the refrigerator and served them up for a national television audience.
The Bears didn't exactly make a great initial impression in their first Monday night appearance of the season. In the first half, they fumbled the football 4 times, one leading to this Lynn Dickey to James Lofton touchdown. The Pack led 7-0, but after that, it was lights out for Green Bay the rest of the way. The Bear defense quickly slammed the door, beating up the Packers and knocking out 2 of their quarterbacks in the process. Walter cracked the 100-yard mark for the 2nd week in a row, gaining 112 yards, and with this touchdown, tying the score at 7, Peyton became the Bears' all-time leading scorer. But the points that made the biggest impression came from the biggest guy on the field, William Refrigerator Perry. His cannonball blast into the end zone set in motion an amazing story which was destined to create an American folk hero. Not since George Halas unveiled the T formation had anything created such a stir in the NFL.
It was all, fun and games.
A lot of fun and games for you. Got a touchdown. Is that your first touchdown?
Yeah, it's my first touchdown.
I bet you saved the ball, huh?
No, I spiked it.
If I was a linebacker and I saw him coming to me, I'd turn and run.
Did you see what he did to a couple of those linebackers?
Well, I just saw the hole. I know I could have got through the hole. And I think it's, listen, this is not the end of the world. I think you got to have a little bit of fun in football, and it's fun for him. He feels like he's involved. He feels like, he's contributing, and that's all we want to do.
The Packers had dared the Refrigerator to come at them, and that's exactly what he did, just as Perry's teammates had been coming at opposing clubs all year long. The Bears added a safety for good measure in the 4th quarter and won 23-7 to keep their perfect record intact.
We're one of the better teams in the league right now, that's all you can say. That's what we've worked for, that's what we've strived for, and we're there.
Didn't remember Steve McMichael being the master of understatement, did you? But I guess that was what it was at that moment. It's our pleasure to welcome to the Bears Den now Jim Morrissey, a member of that '85 Super Bowl team, and Jim, a linebacker on that team. You saw George Cumby getting killed by the fridge. Any sympathy pangs there?
Oh, you better believe it. I think we were about the same weight. I think he was like 220, 225, so no linebacker's going to be able to take on Fridge head on, that's for sure.
What was going on with your defensive teammates? I mean, here's the Fridge, and he's part of the defense, and yet he becomes the focus. I mean, as I recall, he ends up on the cover of Time magazine everywhere. What were you guys thinking?
I think it was just a lift for everyone. I think even the whole NFL. I mean, we carried that on throughout the season, had him work in and out on offense and defense. So it really didn't matter too much to us, but it gave us a little incentive to go out there and see how good he could do on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, it was great fun as he continued to do it, and like everything else, you look back 10 years later, there's some new perspective on it. The Super Bowl came, he got his touchdown.
Right.
Walter didn't. It never was a problem with that football team, though, was it?
No, not too much. I don't think it was a bad time after the game, and certain things that didn't go right for the team, or for Walter, I should say. But he didn't carry it on after that. It was just one thing. I think the media kind of took it on and rode with it, but Walter never gave it a second thought.
All right, now here you are, an 11th round draft choice out of Michigan State, a Super Bowl your rookie year, and you get the interception in the Super Bowl. And as I recall, a pretty good run back after that pick. What's going through your mind, or you even realize where you are
No,
at that point?
I really didn't. I remember Dave Durson was on a blitz, and the quarterback, I think it was Steve Grogan, threw it right to me. It was a gift. I'm just glad I didn't drop it, and I just started running, and I thought I was going to make the end zone, but then I was 4 yards too short.
Now, I'd like to say it was planned. It was kind of a coincidence that we finished with Ming on the film piece, because you and Ming have another distinction.
Uh-oh.
You go to the Packers, man. I mean, of all the places to go after all years with the Bears, that not even full season, but that part season with the Packers, it just, obviously you felt you could still play football, and even if it was for the Packers, you were going to give it another shot?
I enjoyed the stay up there. I mean, it was 12, 13 weeks. We went to the playoffs. We beat Detroit in the playoffs, and unfortunately lost to Dallas. But I enjoyed it. Great group of guys. Management was, first class. Coaching staff, everyone. So it it was a great time for myself.
Okay, we've just got about 30 seconds. I've got to ask you, though, is it a different perspective on the whole Bear-Packer thing from the Green Bay side, or they hate us as much as we hate them?
Yeah. They don't like the Bears too much, but it's a hard-fought football game. It's a great game for both teams. So it was a pleasure being on both sides of the field, that's for sure.
But of course, 12 weeks can't outweigh what? 8
No,
years, right?
there's no question about that. Always a Bears fan. Always a Bears player.
Okay, pretty special stuff there from that exciting game in primetime. I have to wonder, Hub, was this the game where the Monsters of the Midway finally arrived? They knock out a couple rival quarterbacks. William Perry plunges into the end zone. It felt like their star, their national star, was really on the rise after this one.
Well, I agree with you. I do think where they really arrived was last week in San Francisco, but the way they followed up on it in a game like this. And again, you could see in the first half, they turned the ball over 4 times. They were struggling early, but they took it away 5 times. And Wayne and I could talk about this pretty good. Bears-Packers has been the best rivalry in the NFL in history. It was when Wayne and I were calling their games together, 40 years ago or whatever, 30 years ago, whatever it was. And so this was a big game in that regard too. And then you look at the way that defense played in the second half. We saw last week in San Francisco just how good this defense was. And now we saw them even evolving and emerging, taking over a game in the second half that the offense almost cost them in the first half. And the Packers were never going to win the game. But the way that we learned about the Bears in this game, and then Walter getting the franchise record as the scoring leader, I think was a big deal. That was something that had been coming for a few years. Everybody was excited about that. And then I was surprised we didn't see it a week earlier. Seeing Fridge go into the backfield, not in the backfield, but in the end zone, that was special. And that went on for the rest of the season. So yes, this game did have a big say in who the Bears became the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I think even though the week before the San Francisco game was a late Sunday window game, so it was a national game, but this was a primetime game, a Monday night game in Soldier Field. It was Packers and Bears, and it was a hard-hitting affair, as all the turnovers, 9 of them, would indicate. But I think what people will always remember about this game is that it's really when William Perry burst on the scene, because he didn't just get a carry. He got the ball on the goal line and scored. And that really started a whole phenomenon that carried on for the rest of the year.
A lot of fun, to say the least, guys. We're really enjoying recapping these ones, and we'll look forward to, as we move along here, about time to go in the regular season. Great stuff. Before we get into our best bets, as we always do, Hub and Wayne, we're going to try a little rapid fire picking the remainder of the slate. So really just to pick one line of analysis if you got it, but I'm going to come to Wayne first with Thursday night, Steelers visiting the Bengals. You saw Joe Flacco last week.
Yeah, you know what? This is the kind of game the Steelers might lose. And Flacco and the Bengals did a lot of good things in Green Bay last week. I'm going to pick an upset here. I'll go Bengals.
How about you like?
That surprised me. I can't go Bengals the way they're playing right now, but I was impressed, as you said, and the way that Flacco stepped right in and played well was impressive. But I've got to go the other way on this one.
Hub, Saints versus Bears. New Orleans comes into Chicago for a noon Sunday game. Feels like they haven't played one in a while.
Yeah, and this is kind of tough to gauge because I don't see the Saints really doing anything right now. I don't know why this would be the week that they would suddenly emerge. And then I look at the Bears now on a 3-game winning streak. They have gotten better each week, and they are, the young talent on the team is improving and making plays. And I think that is a key factor. This one at home shouldn't be that hard for them. They're going to have some tougher matchups going forward, but I think this one, the Bears get their 4th win of the season.
Wayne, who do you like at Soldier Field? All right, we might have temporarily lost Wayne while we were waiting on his return. We'll move ahead, Hub. Miami Dolphins at Cleveland Browns. What do you think?
Well, I see 2 bad football teams, but the Miami Dolphins were supposed to be pretty decent, and the Browns we knew were going to be bad. The Browns are actually playing pretty good defense. They're playing very well on defense, and it's keeping them competitive in games. They're not winning only games, but they are very competitive in a lot of games they've been in. Now, Miami, I just can't figure them out right now. I don't think they're a great team. I didn't really see them as a playoff team this year, but I didn't see them as a 1-5 team either. That really caught me off guard, and they're just not doing anything right now. Still, when I look at the history of these two teams and what we know about them, I got to assume that Miami finds a way to win this football
All
game.
right. Vegas, Kansas City. What's going to prevent this from being a bloodbath? Probably nothing, Hub.
No, I don't think anything will prevent this from being. I think we saw the reemergence of the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. I wasn't sure the last couple of weeks if they were still the same Chiefs, but we saw the Chiefs we are used to last week against a really good football team in the Lions. This is not against a really good football team. I don't see a team like the Chiefs having trouble going in or wherever they're going to play a team like the Raiders. This one is all Kansas City all the way, I think.
The Chiefs get Rashee Rice back, too, finally, after that lengthy suspension. Hub, we got the Carolina Panthers visiting the New York Jets. The Carolina Panthers at 500 for, I believe, the first time in 5 seasons.
Yeah, I spent part of today trying to figure out how they got to 3-3, to be honest with you. But they are playing much better football. There's no question about that. Their young quarterback, who people wondered when they took him, number 1 overall in that poor first season, is starting to play better. There is no question about that. And this is against a pathetic team, really. And I don't see them turning it around. I talked about some coaches being on the, in trouble. Not him, only 6 games in. He's going to get through the year, but I don't know when he's going to win his first game. It ain't going to be this week. I can tell you that.
Some bad looks for Aaron Glenn across the pond for going that chance to win it with a late field goal and going for it on 4th and 8 with Justin Fields playing as bad as we've ever seen him. That was pretty shocking. All right, we got a few more games to get through here. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We're just going to keep it rolling up. We've got Wayne back now. Let's just get through the last couple games of this slate. Hey, Wayne, welcome back. I got the New England Patriots visiting the Tennessee Titans. What do you think here? The Vrabel Bowl.
I like New England. They're playing real well right now. I think Tennessee will give them a heck of a game because they've got the interim coach going and everybody's been woken up over there. But I picked New England this one on the road.
When the only thing that worries me about this one is I look at the Titans, and when a team gets a change in a head coach, they either play their worst game of the year with a new head coach or they play their best game of the year. Now, this is not a new head coach. It's an interim head coach who's been in the system, but I don't know if it will be enough to turn it around for them. And so that's why I don't see them winning this one, but I do think it's going to be interesting with the change that was made there.
Hub, the New York Giants coming off possibly their biggest win. I don't think it's possible. One of their biggest wins in recent memory. Now go out to visit the Broncos. What do you see here?
Well, and Brian Daboll is one of those coaches I was talking about who definitely is on the hot seat. I don't know if he's in trouble yet, but he is on a very hot seat. And getting that win last week was a big deal. But going out there against Denver is a good football team. I don't think they're not as good as the top tier. They're not in that top 3 or 4 or 5 right now, but they're getting closer. They're definitely the better team here. They're at home. And so I don't see them finding a way to lose this one.
Wayne, Green Bay Packers headed out to the desert. Who do you like in that one?
Well, I think the Packers on the road in this game, Kyler Murray may be back for Arizona, and if he is, that's an interesting wrinkle, but he has not played real well yet this year. They have a good defense. Arizona has a nice defense. I think the Packers, though, are ready to put together a game on the road. They haven't won on the road yet this year, but they appear to be poised to do that now.
Yeah, I don't want to sound silly on this one, guys, but it's pretty easy. Arizona is a bad football team. Packers are a pretty good football team. They are on the road, but again, with the questions at quarterback for Arizona, I think this one's all Packers.
Here's a question, guys. Are the Cardinals, better off with Jacoby Brissett than Kyler Murray? It certainly looked like it was a possibility on Sunday. A few more games to get through here. Hub, Washington, Dallas.
Well, I got a pretty good look at Washington last week, and I was surprised that they turned out to be exactly who I thought they were. I know they were in the NFC Championship game last year, a 12-5 football team, but I just never felt, even as they were winning last year, that they were at that level. Now, so far this year, they came to Chicago at 3-2, playing good but not great I'm sorry, Chicago went there, but they were 3-2. And the Commanders weren't playing great football, and the Bears outplayed them. The Bears beat them up pretty good. Well, they didn't beat them up, but the Bears beat them pretty good. It wasn't close as the way the game ended suggested. The Bears should have won that game easier. This week, I think the Commanders have to bounce back. Now, they're going on a tougher pitch going on the road, but I do think they're good enough to win games like this. They are a playoff team, and I think they probably will be again this year. So I like the Commanders in this one.
Yeah, I think, going to Dallas, it's a tough road to hoe for them. But nonetheless, the Cowboys the air came out of their balloon with their loss to Carolina. I think Washington in this game. I'm on the Commanders on this one.
Guys, Atlanta Falcons, another team coming off just a massive win for the franchise. They now visit the 49ers. I don't know who San Francisco is going to have left to play. Win.
Yeah, no, it's tough in that regard. If Atlanta is going to be a playoff team, they go out there and they win this game. But the 49ers have been resilient. Despite all their losses of personnel hub, they've hung in there and they have a decent record, and they're playing at home. It'll be interesting to see. The biggest question for me is how, as Arthur pointed out, how does Atlanta come back from the high that they just were on?
Well, the other thing about the 49ers, I don't know how they've been winning with all the injuries. And then last week, they lose their best player on defense for the season. How much worse can it get? But they keep on winning, and they are at home. Now, the Falcons, they showed me a lot last week. I was surprised by that. But the 49ers are the more accomplished team. They're at home. Falcons haven't done this in 2 weeks in a row. So I like the 49ers in this one.
All right, and last but not least, Hub, the Houston Texans coming off their bye and the Seattle Seahawks coming off that big win over Jacksonville. Seattle #1 in DVOA. A bit of a surprise here entering Week 7.
Seattle's a pretty good football team. They're playing pretty good football right now, and I'm just not impressed by the Houston Texans. I know they've won their last 2 now after getting after the tough start. I think C.J. Stroud is a good young quarterback, but not playing to the level he did his first 2 years in the league. He's not making enough big plays, and Seattle is a roster that I'm still studying and getting to know better. But I've studied the stats a little bit. I've seen how they're winning games, and they are playing complete football. And so I think the Seahawks are the pick here.
Yeah, I kind of like the Seahawks in this one as well. I mean, their defense is very solid. And, I don't trust Houston, one of those teams that everybody was talking about in the preseason. And like the Washington Commanders, they're not nearly as good as everyone thought they'd be going into the season.
All right, and Wayne, I'm going to come right back to you to kick us off for best bets. It was a rough week for the whole team last week, but that just means there's not the whole team, excuse me. We'll get to Jim Kezios, PFW TV president, in a moment. But before we do, Wayne, start us up. What do you like in Week 7?
All right, the over and under, Arthur, we were talking about it with that game in London. I like 2 defenses in that game. I think the point differential between the Rams or the line to gain, so to speak. What am I asking for? The
44.5 is the
44.5 is the over-under line in that game. Rams and Jaguars. I'm going to say take the under. And by the way, I would have been right last week if the Detroit Lions brought an offense to Kansas City. The Chiefs did their part. The Lions need another touchdown on the board, and I win that one. But I'm going under on this game in London. The other thing I notice about teams that go to London, they usually don't play that well. And they certainly don't execute that well offensively.
We have seen some awful football in London so far this year, guys. Only one way to go up there, too. Hub, who do you like in Week 7?
This may sound a bit weird off of what Wayne just said, but my best bet this week is the Lions. I don't want to repeat, another problem, but I just think they're a really good football team. I think they may be the best team in the NFL this year. I don't read too much into what happened last week against the Chiefs, and I like them a lot. I don't like giving 5.5 points, and the Bucs, it's a tough match, but I just think they're going to win this by 2 touchdowns.
Bucs very banged up. Lions will be without their stud safety, Brian Branch. His 1-game suspension was upheld by the player league discipline. Jordy Nelson, I don't know what his title is, but that suspension is official. Guys, if there's anyone that's been worth fading lately, it's me, and I apologize for that. I'm not getting off the player props. I will go with a veteran this week. Wayne said if Detroit brought an offense last week, his bet would have won. If I would have taken Cam Scatterbo touchdowns instead of receptions, I would have won. My mistake. This week, I'm going with Cade Otton, the Buccaneers tight end. I don't know who else Baker Mayfield has to throw to, so I do think he looks toward his tight end against, again, the Lions missing their best coverage piece in the safety core. So Cade Otton to get 50 receiving yards plus 145 on your money. I like that. Let's try and get hot with that. Jim Kezios hit a 6-leg money line parlay last week. The Pro Football Weekly television president, I think that was plus 378 on his bet. So he's back to a money line parlay this week. He likes the Chiefs, the Bears, and the Chargers. That gets you almost 2-1 on your money, plus 178. And then Gridiron AI, they use cutting edge artificial intelligence to beat the odds. Gridiron AI is 5-1 on best bets on the podcast. And with 3 top 5 finishes in the NFL Pick Watch contest the past 5 seasons, they've consistently won us money by beating the odds. This week's picks, the Chiefs minus 11.5 versus Vegas, the Colts money line at the Chargers, and their best bet, the New England Patriots team total in that Vrabel Bowl, the team total over 24.5. So for all of Gridiron AI's picks this week, visit gridironai.com or just scan the QR code on your screen, and use promo code PFW for 50% off this week's picks. It's the winning move. So best of luck on all your picks. Thank you so much for being with us, as always, on the Pro Football Weekly TV podcast. For Wayne Larrabee and Hub Arkish, I am Arthur Arkish. It's a pleasure, as always. Enjoy Week 7. We'll talk to you soon.